All right, so we need to talk about XRP. I've been seeing tons of you in the comments asking the same question. What were the actual catalysts back in 2018? Like, what made it explode the way it did? I'm going to break down exactly what was driving that massive run up back then, and then compare it to what we're seeing right now. The difference is pretty interesting. So let me kick this off with something from Credible Crypto. XRP was also one of the worst performing majors. In 2017, until it wasn't, in the 30 days following Bitcoin's peak, XRP rallied over 10 times, bringing total gains for its cycle to 62,947%, or a 629 times. Don't count it out simply because it had a slow start. So he posted this back in 2021. Now look, the 2021 run wasn't anywhere near as spectacular as what we saw before, and there are two big reasons why. First, we had the Ripple versus SEC case, which was brand new at the time, and second, XRP got delisted from a bunch of major exchanges. So yeah, momentum was pretty much killed. But here's the crazy part. Even with all that working against it, XRP still hit $1.92 in 2021. So what actually led up to all of this? What set the stage before the SEC case even happened? Well, back in 2017, Brad Garlinghouse dropped this bombshell. He said there were 15 senior executives from JP Morgan sitting in Ripple's office that afternoon. Think about that. JP Morgan executives physically showed up to see what Ripple was building and figure out if they could get access to some of that escrow. And Gary Gensler actually broke this down when he was at MIT. Check out what he said here.
Monopolist with another central monopolist, a lot of commercial banks aren't terribly excited about that. Maybe you're going to have to give some ownership. Maybe you'll have to give 50% of your ownership to the 20 banks that are now, part of this. I mean, there are other ways to build incentive systems. Maybe you put a native token in there, and you give them the native token. So there may be other incentive ways to beat the current monopolist. But I, having been around commercial banks for a long time, they really are looking for ways to replace their aggregators in their back office, whether it's clearing, settlement, exchanges, credit agencies, but they are deeply understanding, because they are pretty ambitious and very good at making money as well. They deeply understand that every idea that's pitched to them is somebody who currently is small but wants to get big and gain market power. So they're also always thinking about how to ensure that there's a check to slow down your startup from gaining market power 5, 10, and 15 years from now.
And then what happened? XRP suddenly started showing signs of life again. The price corrected because the market knew we were finally heading into a level playing field. That's just my take on it. But look, let's rewind to 2018. What were the real catalysts back then? This is coming from Grok, by the way. So, broader cryptocurrency market, rally. The entire crypto market exploded in late 2017, with Bitcoin surging from $1,000 to nearly $20,000 by December. Altcoins like XRP rode this wave of retail FOMO, fear of missing out, hype from mainstream media, and influx of new investors. XRP's price began accelerating in December 2017, jumping from 20 cents to over $2 by early January, as capital flowed from Bitcoin into altcoins, Ripple's partnerships, and enterprise adoption announcements. So there was talk of trials and integrations with major banks like American Express and Santander, enabling near-instant settlements as little as 4 seconds in December of 2017. Japan's SBI Holdings partnered with Ripple, the Form SBI Ripple Asia, launching a consortium with Japanese credit card companies to use blockchain for remittances. These announcements create a buzz about XRP's potential to disrupt the $5 trillion annual cross-border payments industry, drawing institutional interest, speculation around exchange listings. Rumors of a Coinbase listing in late 2017 sparked massive speculation, as Coinbase was seen as a kingmaker for altcoins, although the listing didn't materialize until 2019. So back in the day when Coinbase listed something, prices would literally explode. We're talking 2 to 5 times pumps. That's what everyone was hoping for. And you know what's crazy? Korean exchanges like Upbit and BitHum were going absolutely nuts. The trading volume was insane. XRP was trading at this wild premium, like 30 to 50% higher in South Korea just because of local demand. And guess what? That's still happening right now. Upbit and BitHum are crushing it with XRP. They also launched XRapid back then, which is now called RippleNet on-demand liquidity. But here's the thing. Most of those catalysts, they didn't actually happen during that run. A lot of that stuff played out way later. So what's different now in 2025? We've got ETFS. The case is done. All right, check this out. We might actually get some real clarity from Washington. ISO 20022, that's flipping on next month. And the ETFs, dude, when that money starts pouring in, it's going to be bonkers. I'm not even exaggerating. There are so many catalysts stacking up right now, and they're all hitting at once as we roll into alt season. That's exactly why I'm convinced this run is going to rival what we saw back in 2017 and 2018. We're talking price targets that are going to make people's jaws drop. All these people sitting there going, nah, XRP can't go that high because of market cap, or past cycles prove it won't happen. They're about to eat their words, every single one of them. Scarcity is becoming a real thing. The majority of XRP sitting on exchanges, it's already vanished. Black Swan Capitalist actually breaks this down. The majority of XRP on exchanges is already gone, with so little liquidity left. Any significant demand will force the market to absorb the remaining supply instantly. So picture this. What if one day you wake up and there's just no XRP left on the exchanges? Sounds crazy, right? But let me break down what's actually happening here. I pulled up Grok to look at the numbers, and dude, the difference is mind-blowing. Rewind to 2018, we had 10 billion XRP just floating around on exchanges. That's like 10 to 15% of everything that exists. Tons of liquidity, everyone's trading, the bull run hits, we touch that all-time high, and then crash. Classic crypto, right? Now look at 2025. You ready for this? 3.8 billion. We've lost more than half of what was sitting on exchanges. Where'd it all go? Here's where it gets really interesting. Companies are straight up playing Monopoly with XRP now. They're creating these treasury reserves and just locking it away. Gone. Off the table. Can't touch it. And we haven't even talked about what's coming. Institutions are circling. ETFs are gearing up to buy mountains of this stuff. When they start stacking XRP like it's going out of style, that's when things get really spicy. Less supply available, more demand incoming. You do the math. This could get wild. The Shane Ellis theory is no longer just a theory, it's in motion. Massive press release here from SBI around their $200 million cash investment into an Evernorth XRP primarily, to buy XRP. All right, so let me break this down for you. This money, it's going straight into XRP. We're not talking about some general investment into Evernorth or whatever. No. This is literally about buying up XRP, stacking it, and then locking it away. That's the actual strategy here. 9 companies to hold XRP in their treasury. Newest company, Reliance Global Group. This signals corporate adoption and confidence in XRP's long-term value and utility. All these companies are already piling into this crypto, right? And we haven't even seen the real wave yet. There are tons of institutional investors just sitting there waiting on the sidelines because they need regulations in place first. Once those regulations come through, it's going to be absolute chaos. We're talking nonstop institutional FOMO, and I'm not talking about a month or two. This thing is probably going to keep running straight through all of 2026. We're still so early on this. Flare becomes top DeFi platform for XRP after FXRP launch. So you see, Flare Network became the largest EVM DeFi ecosystem for wrapped XRP tokens since Flare's FXRP launch. Its networked total value locked rose 37.9%. Total value locked of XRP on the network reached $86.2 million. Flare. So get this. Flare wants to grab 5% of all the XRP out there and just lock it up. Let me say that again. 5% of the entire XRP supply gone, locked away. Now think about what that means. How do we not end up with a scarcity situation down the road? Like, it's pretty much inevitable at that point. And look, I'm just gonna say it. If I were you, I'd be scooping up Flare while it's still sitting under 2 cents. Because I'm calling it now. Flare is going to be one of those cryptos where people are kicking themselves in a few years, wishing they had a time machine so they could come back and buy it at these ridiculously cheap prices. You heard it here first. Ripple is going after Swift indirectly. You know what? Back in 2018, this kind of thing wasn't even happening. The momentum we're seeing right now, it just wasn't there. We were in a completely different landscape. And Vincent Vanko, he actually nailed it when he said, "What a huge news item and unexpected. We all thinking Ripple is going after Swift directly. However, this is how they're doing it through acquisition. Then simply replace the backend. Amazing. Go Ripple and XRP." So here's what's really exciting about this whole thing. Ripple is building something huge with their treasury product. They're basically creating an alternative to Swift. You know Swift, right? That old system banks have been using forever to move money internationally. Well, Ripple is saying, hey banks, you don't have to use that anymore. Come use our solution instead. And here's where it gets interesting. Once one bank makes the jump and starts moving money around the world super fast and dirt cheap, you're going to see a massive network effect kick in. I'm talking about banks abandoning the Swift ship left and right and climbing aboard Ripple's yacht. That's honestly the best way I can put it. Because think about it, when you have a genuinely better solution, people are going to use it. It's that simple. Everyone wants fast, cheap, and secure, and that's exactly what Ripple delivers. But here's the thing, we didn't have any of this back in 2018. This is all new territory we're heading into now. This comes from Smoke. Ripple in the Federal Reserve collaboration to update domestic payment systems. Just in, Federal Reserve looks into payment accounts that would grant crypto and fintech companies access to Fed payment rails. Look, everything we predicted, it's happening right now in 2025. And here's the crazy part. Back in the day, if you saw news like this drop, XRP would have shot up 5%, maybe 10% in a single day. Easy. But now we're in 2025 and the game has completely changed. News doesn't move the price anymore. We're all just sitting here waiting for the actual catalyst to kick in first. But let me tell you, Ripple working with the Fed, this was always going to happen. We knew this was coming. It should have happened way earlier, honestly. This was a given from the start. This comes from Eleanor Terrett. Big news out of the Federal Reserve Payments Innovation Conference this morning. Governor Chris Waller announced that central bank is proposing a new type of limited access master account, or what he calls a skinny master account, for all legally eligible institutions to receive direct access to the Fed's payment rails so they don't have to rely on partner banks. With this setup, they would access all the services of a full master account, like the ability to borrow from the Federal Reserve. Importantly, every legal eligible entity could get one, and the legal rules for eligibility wouldn't change. Essentially, this new master account L would allow the Fed to greenlight innovative banks, including fintechs, stablecoin issuers, and other payments companies. This is a big deal for companies like Custodian Bank and Kraken FX, which would have spent years trying to get a Fed master account with Custodial even taking the Fed to court. It could also speed up access for companies like Ripple and Anchorage, which applied this year. And get this, there's actually a real chance this catalyst could play out before 2025 wraps up. Now, about the Fed master account situation. Ripple might not get the traditional master account, but they'd get an alternative version that gives them basically all the same access. The only thing they'd be missing, the ability to borrow directly from the Federal Reserve. But honestly, I don't think Ripple even needs that. Have you seen their balance sheet? It's rock solid. But here's where it gets interesting. The catalysts that are lining up for this run, they could easily push XRP to $100. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but the pieces are all there. If you're not zooming out and looking at the big picture right now, you're going to miss this. You're going to sell way too early. I'm talking about people dumping their XRP at $10, $20, $30 thinking they nailed the top. Then what happens? They watch it keep climbing without them. Because here's what's actually coming. XRP ETFs. The inflows are going to be massive. That's what I'm seeing on the horizon. Then you've got regulatory clarity finally happening. You've got Ripple potentially getting that Fed master account. Throw in the ISO 20022 standard, possibly bringing real utility and value to XRP. But wait, there's more. Start thinking about scarcity. What happens when all the XRP gets pulled off the exchanges during this run? When you put all these pieces together, we're not just talking about a little price bump. We're looking at a much, much higher price for XRP than most people are prepared for. $100? That's probably just a pit stop. XRP could easily keep going after that. All right, I wanted to break all this down for you, and hopefully I did a solid job explaining it. If this helped you out, go ahead and smash that like button. Here's what I really wanted you to see: the difference between these three bull runs. Back in 2017 to 2018, XRP went absolutely crazy. Then 2020 to 2021 came around, and there was just too much baggage. The SEC lawsuit had just dropped, and it killed the momentum. But now, 2025, all that's behind us. Nothing's in the way anymore. So while we wait for this to unfold, just stay patient and keep that positive mindset. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome. Catch you in the next video. Have a good one.